All right, everybody, welcome to the Business of Coaching workshop. We are in the midst of the How to Keep Clients Longer series. Last week we did part one, Fix the Foundation First. I'm on the last slide from the presentation we did with the free resource that you can download if you go to turnkey.coach, the programming continuity checklist. And the whole idea of the first part was to think about your programming as not just a mechanism for delivering sets, reps, and weight, but for a system that keeps your clients engaged throughout their training life cycle and as their life evolves. And thinking about not just how do I get my client as strong as humanly possible today and tomorrow, but how do I support their training journey and have systems in place to be able to continue to meet their needs as they go from workout 1 to workout 1,000. And I'm not just saying that as something hyperbolic. That's actual client workout numbers completed that we have all the time at Barbell Logic using TurnKey Coach. I've got probably about half my roster is over 1,000 workouts, and a couple that are getting to 2,000 workouts. So part one is to think about fixing your foundation. Today, we're going to talk about part two, thinking about your programming and your coaching system throughout the client lifecycle, and being able to recognize retention breakpoints, why good clients leave. So often when a client leaves, the superficial reason might be cost or time or priority. But if you dig a little deeper and do your 5 why analysis of the real reason they're leaving, it's often because they outgrow the format. And that could be for a number of reasons. Maybe the priorities they had when they were 32 and, working full time, no family, or maybe haven't married. And then by workout 1,000, they've got 3 kids, they've changed jobs, they're married, they moved across town. The format of showing up at the gym 3 or 4 times a week at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the evening might not work anymore. So what we're going to talk about are some of those breakpoints and how to prepare for those so that you're ready to grow with the client as they evolve throughout their training evolution. So there's 3 big churn points that we've seen at Barbell Logic and with other coaches that are using TurnKey Coach. Number 1, life disruption. Like I said, you move jobs, schedule shifts. You need more you need more flexibility, not just to say goodbye. Skill progression. Often, as a client advances throughout their training, the thing that they valued on day 1 is not the thing they value as much on day 1,000. Somebody showing up to the gym for their first session needs a coach to give them cues, maybe rep to rep every single set. By the time they've been training with you for 3 or 4 years, their technique is pretty solid. They're able to maybe even adjust the program on that day, modify the weight, modify the exercise. They might even be coaching somebody by day 1,000. And so you need to have a path where they can continue to get value from the relationship with you as a coach, but with a different format. And instead of being an exit, that might be fewer touch points. That might be, at a lower price point. But in any case, the churn often happens when you only have one offer that's really designed for that intro level client that doesn't grow with them as they advance. And the third one is kind of a combination of the others, where budget changes, and it could be, often, as I've talked about in the past, there's the 3 elements of a business where you have cost, price, and value. So often life disruptions and skill progression are putting pressure on the value side of the equation, if you remember that. And that gets closer and closer to the price, meaning that they at some point might hit a tipping point where the value they get dips below the price point that you started with, or that your offer centers around. And so then a solution for that is to have a lower touch option that keeps them in your ecosystem, and essentially shifts the price point down as the value pressure increases. So you could look at these as churn points, or it could be a retention opportunity if you have the right offer. And so the focus here is going to be thinking about how you can build a system that enables you to extend the lifetime value of your customer, not because you're pressuring them to continue to show up for the exact same format, but because you're able to create an offer that fits into these churn points. So one of the biggest shifts in the mindset of a gym owner or a coach who's used to working with somebody in person is that often the key metric is attendance. If somebody's not showing up to the gym or to the session, they're not getting value from your coaching service. And so often you can get into a mindset that a client missing a session is failing. But if you can extend your offer and build a more robust solution into your coaching practice, that can shift into a client missing a session, they still have a plan. So your coaching can continue to have value, not at a discount, but it can actually be a better service because they're no longer dependent on having to be in the same exact place at the same time. If they miss, they still have a way to continue to get value from your coaching service. We have a quote here from Bruce Knox that keeping a client accountability high across both in-person and online formats creates a seamless experience. And that's what ultimately retains a client, is where they're able to continue to have a relationship with you without being dependent on always being in the same place at the same time. So what you end up creating is a ladder of offers, a set of different tiers where you're able to continue to meet your client's needs at the same time as you're able to meet your needs as a business owner throughout those different churn points with a continuous customer experience. So it never feels like they're having to do like a program overhaul. If you think about this from a coaching perspective, Barbell Logic, when we started early on, coaches would shift the entire program from something like a linear progression to Texas method to daily undulating periodization to block periodization. And it was sort of felt like this big overhaul of the entire program until we started using minimum effective dose, where you try to find one variable at a time and kind of incrementally morph the program to meet the client where their needs are. The same thing can be true with your the offer that you build. So most gym owners or coaches start with a very high touch in-person coaching offer. Micro gym owners are frequently using semi-private coaching that I think fits into this model, where the core value of the service is being in the space with the coach, maybe the other small group members, and you get a combination of technical feedback, obviously the programming, and then the community support of being in that space. Hybrid coaching, a lot of gym owners are finding as an excellent solution to take kind of the next step down in terms of time spent in the same place, where you're able to continue that relationship, but maybe instead of 3 or 4 times a week, you're able to shift down to twice a week, or maybe even once a week. Or maybe even once a month, every other week, whatever the solution is that works best for you and your client, you can continue to maintain seamless programming, continuous feedback, and connection, like we talked about in the previous presentation, where even though you're seeing them less often in person, the number of touch points can actually go up. And what's really cool when you get this balance right is that you're able to often increase the perceived value. So instead of thinking of this as, oh, the value is reducing, now I've got to cut my price and I've got to cut my profit margin. Instead, what you're often able to do is grow with the client as their needs change and demonstrate more value. And although the subscription price might be less, the cost is also less. So, for example, let's say somebody's coming into your in-person training sessions for $299 a month. They get 1 hour in the gym 3 times a week. 4 weeks, you're spending 12 hours with that client or maybe a small group, and it's $299 a month. Let's say somebody no longer can meet that gym time, but once a week they can come in at a different time slot or what have you. And so you lower the price to $199 a month, but you're only seeing them 4 times a month. There's some additional incremental work that goes into maintaining the program and the interaction online, but at a drastically reduced amount. Maybe it's 3 minutes per workout. So let's say they're still training 3 or 4 times a week. So they're still doing 12 workouts a week. They're still getting the results from it. They're still getting the progress, and they're interacting with you, maybe even on every single workout, just like they were before. But instead of being there for the entire hour, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, you're spending maybe 3 minutes. So your time investment for that hybrid client goes down by 70, 80%, but the price only went down 30% in that example. Let's say you drop it to $199 for once or twice a week. So the value goes up for the client because that's actually meeting their needs better than the full in-person session. Again, think about going back to that churn point. They're no longer seeing the value as much from being there in person all the time. It's worse for their schedule. And instead, you're now offering them a solution that's a lower price point. They still can get feedback on their lifts, assuming you're on TurnKey Coach and they're uploading videos. They're still getting custom programming, and they still get to see you once a week or twice a week based on whatever the service is. And on top of all of that, your dollar per hour actually went up. The inevitable next step for some clients is going to be online only. Maybe they move 2 hours away. Maybe they move to a different state. I have clients that I've worked with in person that moved on to literally to the other side of the country and was able to maintain that relationship. Same thing. Maybe you drop the price a little bit more. Maybe it's only $149 a month, but you're only spending 3 minutes a workout. Maybe it's an hour total for the entire month. So now you're making $149 for an hour of work versus $299 for 12 hours of work. Obviously, you can play with the pricing and the frequency and all that kind of stuff. We have a number of different controls that allow you to set up that service model, but you're still, the point being, able to maintain structure and deliver value to your client without having to be in the same place at the same time at all. The last one is more of a check-in format. This is kind of maybe the more traditional online coaching where maybe it's just once a month. You have a form that they fill out. You could deliver programming. They might even be on a coach yourself format. But again, it gives you another lever, an even lower price point that maintains them in your ecosystem. They still continue to get value for being part of your coaching community. And what's beautiful about all of these options is that the client can go either direction. A full coaching client can go all the way down to check-ins, and there may be a point in time where the priorities shift again and they're able to work back up the other direction. So it's not just that you are able to maintain the relationship with your client. It's not just that you're able to actually increase your profit margin as they go down this ladder, but you're able to continue to maintain the relationship in a way that they can move back up if that's the better fit. So the point being that it's not a downshift in service or a quality in service. With TurnKey Coach, you can maintain a high level of service, a very high value product, and meet the client where they're at with exactly the level of service that they need. The example below, real world, we've had Marty Jacobs on the podcast a couple of times. If you haven't heard those episodes, I highly recommend going to turnkey.coach and taking a look. But last year, we met him at the Arnold. He started building his hybrid model and was able to make that transition into a combination of full coaching, hybrid, and online coaching clients without losing a single client. even with price increases. So what's interesting about this approach is that not only does it enable you to offer better solutions for your clients, it enables you to optimize the solutions for the client that's willing to pay for the higher touch points, rather than feeling like you've got to serve the entire market with one solution. So what Marty experienced is that by having lower price point options that were also lower touch point options, he could spend less time in the gym while serving clients paying those lower price points, and actually raise his prices for his in-person clients, because the ones that didn't want to pay that higher price point had options to continue working with him without paying that higher price point. And the ones where that price point was really worth the premium signed up and continued to work with him. So he was able to make both his in-person coaching more profitable, to add more revenue, and keep all of his clients by broadening the product offering. What I really want to emphasize here are 2 points. One, he did not have to become an online social media influencer. The clients for these additional offers were organic within his existing clients at the gym. So you don't have to recreate a whole new marketing campaign. You don't have to go build a magical website or social media account where people are converting out of the ether. This is a solution that better serves your existing client base and gives your existing clients a path that meets them where they're at as they hit those different churn points. The other key point here is that you didn't have to come up with a new service. If you integrate TurnKey Coach effectively into your in-person coaching, the hybrid and the online only and the check-in just become extensions of the existing work that you're already doing. You don't have to come up with a new fulfillment system. You don't have to, again, convert clients over that have never worked with you before. In some ways, by using existing clients, as we heard from the John Gaglione episode, you're able to build into your in-person coaching service effectively a training mechanism for creating hybrid and online only clients. If they're getting their programming in person from TurnKey Coach, and maybe even occasionally getting video feedback when you're out of town or when you can't make it, or maybe they're traveling, you've prepared a client to be a perfect candidate for your hybrid or online only coaching service when the in-person no longer fits for one of those 3 churn points. So really important there. This is not requiring a coach or a gym owner to build a new system out of nothing. If you build it right, these are simply extensions of your existing fulfillment system. So takeaway from part 2: to stop avoidable churn, we've got a couple of resources for you. One is the churn calculator. If you go to turnkey.coach/churn, then you can do a real quick calculation to see how much churn is costing you in your business. It takes 45 seconds to a minute to fill out. And you'll just need to know your churn numbers and how much you're charging. Then 2 is a retention playbook. This is a really cool resource you can get from the website if you go to turnkey.coach, where it will give you practical tips and tools for how you can keep clients longer and transition them into these different formats and how to structure those. So I highly encourage you to go check those out. They're totally free, and will hopefully help you think through how you can evolve your business and your coaching platform to better serve your clients, make more money while spending less time in the gym. With that, open it up to any questions or comments if anybody is in the live stream, or bring out Mac, or we just call it a day. Beautiful Mac McGregor.
I might even shave next time. I'll wash and shave.
What's your experience been, or have you had any experience with managing those churn points? Or as you reflect, I think we've talked about this before, you actually did not have much success making that transition.
Yeah. So I think everything that you've covered is absolutely verifiable.
Mm-hmm.
It works.
Mm-hmm.
But there is an element of psychological warfare, psychological preparation that is needed. And so my experience was, obviously, I ran my own in-person facility,
Mm-hmm.
and when I sold it on, I was able to convince a good handful of my clients to stay with me with a hybrid model where they would come and train with me in my garage, in my home gym,
Mm-hmm.
and then they would get their programming for the rest. But it was a very jarring experience for them. There was no real transition to it. I didn't prepare them well for it. It was done very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And for those guys, they had signed up with me originally for in-person training. That was their vision. That was their model.
Mm-hmm.
And they derived a lot of value from that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I prepared them to shift their thinking in terms of value to their situation. And bear in mind, we didn't swap because they needed to. They swapped because I had to. And I think that's the fundamental
Mm-hmm.
difference there. So I think I could have done a better job preparing them for it mentally, psychologically.
Yeah.
But I think that's the difference.
I think that's the thing that, well, I mean, a couple of things unique in that situation. You did 100% switch, right?
Yeah.
Like there was no full in-person option after you made that transition.
That is correct, yes.
Right. And so I think if I take the Marty Jacobs case study or John Gaglione, the thing that they've both done is incorporated turnkey coach and the training the client from day one into their business model or their operating model. So by the time they reach where the client reaches that one of those churn points, then it feels like an option for the client, not necessarily the coach. But they still have the in-person option. It's just what's interesting about the Marty Jacobs example is he essentially imposed the price pressure on his in-person option to kind of facilitate creating online or hybrid clients because they didn't want to pay the premium anymore. So
Yeah, I
it
think
was a lever for him to pull that helped increase his revenue and his price on the in-person without it being like a punishment for his clients because he still had an option where he could still work with them.
yeah, and I think ultimately it was their call.
Mm-hmm.
So in my case, I made all the decisions for them,
Yeah.
and their perception of value was affected by that. Where in Marty's case, I think very shrewdly he pulled that lever, but they were able to make up their own minds and decide, yes, that is the value for me.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think that's probably a little bit more like John when he had to leave his New York gym to Delaware. The New York gym was just like, well, the only way I can work with him is 100% remote.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
so I think he had a little bit more attrition in that example because it was just ripping the Band-Aid off. But it still helped him retain quite a few clients from that gym.
Yeah, I think
My
another.
experience. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, sure. I think another error that I made, quite subconsciously, it was not intentional, was having that in-person experience. I did all the programming. I told them what to do. I told them what to input. There was very little independence being created, which I think is necessary, and it's part of John's very subtle programming of it, not for his clients, his programming of his clients.
Right.
And their mental model is to train them, to
Right.
slowly lead them down that path. And I had not incorporated that at all. So a
I
victim
think
of my own success.
I think that's an unspoken part, or maybe I didn't emphasize it enough of fix your programming in part one.
Yes, sir.
That fixing your programming doesn't just mean like do the right program in terms of getting results, but it's to think about your programming from the perspective of a long-term relationship with the client. And so like if your programming is to have a client come in and be told exactly what to do and to do 20 different exercises that all need specialized form correction or load management or movement correction, and those are constantly changing to the point where the client's not actually learning or developing skills, that, going back to that skill churn point. If your programming doesn't build on training your clients to become more skillful and to evolve in their training, you're not setting yourself up for success to have a client that is independent or less dependent on you being right there to count their reps, pick their weight, fix their movement. So I think the fix your program is a little bit bigger picture than maybe I made it sound, because it's both. Yes, we need to program effectively to get results for our clients, and maybe they need a little bit of variety, obviously, at times. But if there's so much variation and they're so dependent on you, to even to the point of filling out their program, you're never going to be able to break away from that client. They're
Yeah,
always
it's
dependent
this.
on you. And I think that's a little bit of the trap of the traditional gym owner mindset of attendance being the key indicator of success.
Yeah, if you can create or move towards an independent client, I think that should always be the aim ultimately, because I
Right.
think that's an honest aim. But if you're in a position where you're constantly making all the decisions for them,
Right.
then that's the losing battle. There has to be this point where they may be becoming proficient in their movement,
Hmm.
and you're happy that they are moving well and they're moving competently and safely. But if they're not able to make programming decisions for themselves in the moment based on your teachings, you're probably not doing them the best possible service, and you will find yourself in that position where you're being asked all the time, what do I need to do? And you can't
Right.
break away. And then if you artificially sever that connection, before they're prepared,
Right.
then you're not
Right.
going to have a successful outcome on the other side. So yeah, I
Right.
absolutely
Right.
agree. The programming of your clients is part of that solution for sure.
Right. And it doesn't have to be all of them. I think
No.
this also, I think it's worth emphasizing that it's not like the goal should be that every single client moves into hybrid or online. Um, but if you have that option, let's say it's 25% of clients that churn have an option to off ramp,
Mhm.
and your churn is 8%, but you're able to knock it down to 6%. Think about the impact of your business. It's like, I mean, that is a huge impact on the amount of revenue that you're making, the taking pressure off the amount of new clients that you need to be getting by 25%. So it's, and I think it's difficult to articulate the kind of total impact to the business that can have by offering something that only a fraction of your clients need to take you up on, without you having to go again, build out a whole new sales funnel, marketing funnel, fulfillment system, integrate it into your system, just giving you a significant increase to revenue and churn reduction.
I think I've heard it said before where anything that you can do to reduce volatility
Hmm.
in your business is of infinite value. And that idea of, I'm not worried about losing this great in-person client who sees me 12 times a month and they're a great source of revenue. I'm not worried about losing them because I know I have a raft of solutions for them that
Right.
are all equally viable.
Right.
And it just takes the edge off the hell that you live in as a business owner and an entrepreneur.
Right.
And it suddenly, yeah, that reduction in volatility is a huge field leveler,
I
and
think
it allows you
also,
to demonstrate. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, I think it also takes pressure on the front end too. Like during the
Mm,
sales process, if you're able to say, especially, there's a lot of talk about having your high ticket offer. Well, it's one thing to have a high ticket offer if that's the only product that you deliver,
mhm,
versus a high ticket offer where you have those tier step downs where you
mhm,
can both fall back on them if the high ticket offer isn't a fit for
mhm,
financial reasons, or as an off ramp once the high ticket offer is no longer the right solution. So you can
mhm.
push hard on selling a high ticket offer, knowing that you've got it in your back pocket, or even an upfront conversation with the client to say, hey, look, we're going to do this really intense focused program for 12 weeks or whatever the program is. 8 to 12 weeks is kind of typical time frame. And once you've gotten through that, don't worry, we're not charging, thousands of dollars a month for forever. We're going to build this skill set. We're going to build these habits. We're going to transform your current situation. And then we can get to more of a sustainable kind of steady state solution that's more affordable for you
Mm.
and for me, for my time and your time. So I think it doesn't just serve your existing clients. It also serves your future clients as well.
Yeah, that front end conversation, is obviously fundamental to getting people in through the door. And
Mm.
yeah, that's $800 price tag for lots and lots of personal training can be a very jarring, daunting prospect. And clearly, having that pathway that you can outline to them, which suggests, yeah, it might be this to begin with, but then within a
Right.
certain amount of time, we can expect this. But also, depending on the height of that barrier to entry, is if you do have something like the check-in plus programming or
Mhm.
hybrid, that might be your entry point for these guys, and of
True.
which, again, if they find themselves in the situation where they will see more value from an upsell.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned before that you can go down and come back up again, but you may
Yep.
start from the down and come up.
Yes. And we definitely have more turnkey coach users that are using that strategy as well with leveraging the group chat function.
Mm-hmm.
They're able to create community where very low ticket clients are able to be in the group chat. Coach yourself. They can self serve from templates that the coach has, and be part of that community that that can then upsell, just like you're talking about. Um, yeah, it can definitely go that way as well.
Mm.
And I think that.
If you're in, if you're in a community chat
Hmm.
like that, then obviously you can sprinkle in
Hmm.
evidence of what happens in your higher tier service, so you
Right.
can introduce a
Or
little bit of
spot check.
FOMO.
A lot of
Yeah,
times
for sure.
what a coach can do is drop into a workout, leave a video feedback on one of their
Hmm.
workouts without even that being asked of them or part of the offer. It's just sort of like a, hey, just want to reach out, say hi, see how it's going, notice you hit this PR, let me know if you need anything, and just kind of starting the conversation, building it from there.
Hmm.
It's just part of that funnel of building trust, and potentially converting a client. The way I approached it, because when I was coaching in person more often, it was a side hustle that I had to
Hmm.
commute to the gym, and I had very limited number of hours. I just kept ratcheting that price point up based on my availability. So as long as I was booking time slots, I would keep raising the price, keep raising the price, keep raising the price. And
Hmm.
I lived in I was like right next to Microsoft, so there was a lot of people that spending a couple hundred, $300-400 for like a package of in-person sessions was pretty doable. And then when we reached the end, or they just didn't want to keep doing that, online coaching became the like primary long-term product. So I could get the most out of the short number of hours that I had to work in person, and feed that into my online coaching roster. And then kind of like Marty, I just kept raising the price on the in-person hours until I was working the number of hours that I wanted, and then feeding everybody into the online coaching for long-term service.
Mm, beautiful.
Anyways, looks like we are not getting any questions today. All good. Thank you, everybody who is listening or tuning in after the fact. And feel free to reach out to me or Mac at A. Jackson at turnkey.coach or M. McGregor at turnkey coach. We've listed the resources, turnkey.coach/churn, turnkey.coach/ the gym owner's retention playbook with dashes between each of the words. And then we will post those resources in the show notes as well. See you next week on the Business Coaching Workshop.